where us service providers could go through and we can connect. We can talk all things systems, business, entrepreneur on in my business, and just things that I'm seeing going on with my clients' businesses, threads, etc. And we can kind of like chit chat about some of these things. So, in today's live, we're talking about insanely good client experience, the experience that keeps your clients coming back. So, we're going to talk about is what actually makes client experience insanely good. Okay. And so as service providers, a lot of times what happens is that we often think that good client experience is about giving our clients gifts, which that is a part of displaying our support and our experience in providing a good client experience with for our clients, right? Sometimes we think we have to go through and over deliver. Over delivering is also one of those things that we think we have to do in order to be able to provide good client experience. It's absolutely not. And then also continually to be available, being on 24/7. Our clients go through and they ask us a question. We feel that we have to go through and answer that question immediately or within a few hours. We have to pull out our laptop and then go through and answer that inquiry, answer that question. Otherwise, we feel like we're not actually providing good client experience. And I know for me, I've been there. I have been the that I have been sitting at my dinner table with my family and got some type of client inquiry. Maybe they had a question about something, and then I'm pulling out my laptop to go answer the question, right? But all of those things, though, those things, they, to a certain degree, they do show that you want to support your clients. They do show that you do care about your ultimately that's actually not exactly what creates good client experience because those things they're just not something that is sustainable, right? We cannot do these things all the time. We cannot be on 24/7. We can't answer every single inquiry once the inquiry comes to us. We cannot do that all the time. But what we can do is that we can set up an intentional process, intentional systems in our business that then help us to be able to support the client experience that we ultimately want. Okay. So if you're tuning in live, definitely feel free. You can introduce yourself inside the chat. Let me know what it is that you do, where you're tuning in from, so we can connect here. I said last time that I was going to try to get you guys some slides, some visuals, and I am working on that. Right now, I'm just trying to kinda get in the habit of just going live every single week, and so honestly, I don't have the time to go through and create the slides, but I do plan on doing that, okay? Because I do wanna give you all some visuals so you can actually see without necessarily always having to take notes or anything like that. So slides are gonna be coming, even if it's just a couple here and there, I do plan on giving you some slides, okay? But one of the things about the client experience and creating this insanely good client experience, like I said before, is about creating something that's intentional. So, a couple things we're going to cover today, so I can kind of give you some foreshadowing. I'll make sure too, though, I will make sure that I did it on the last video. I'll make sure that I'll go back after the live, so it'll probably be tomorrow, but I'll go back and put timestamps on the video. So even though we don't have slides, if it has a timestamp, so you can kind of move your way throughout, okay? But today we're going to talk about why most client experience feels scattered or forgettable. We're going to talk about what a client journey actually looks like as a service provider. We're going to talk about how being intentional with your client touch points changes everything and what is the simple shift that can lead to happier clients, better retention, and more referrals. And then the last thing is just of how to basically create this kind of experience that could be automated without you sacrificing your personal touches. Because I know a lot of times that's one of the main things I hear as a client experience system strategist is that I don't want to go through and automate that because I want it to feel personal. And you don't have to give up the personal touches, just to kind of let you know. Those are things that you can definitely go through and you can sprinkle in. Okay. All right. So before we get into today's session here, because we have about 30 minutes, these sessions are about 30 minutes long or so, is that I do want to let you know of something special that's coming up. Okay. So next week, starting March 16th, so March 16th through March 31st, you all know that I absolutely love using HoneyBook to go through and to manage my client, do my whole client management, right? That's how I go through and I manage a lot of the things I go and do for my clients. So that would be invoicing, contract payments, all of that is done inside of HoneyBook for the most part, right? So starting next week, you have a chance to win a full year of HoneyBook for free starting next week. There will be one winner, so March 16th through March 31st. And this would be right now, it's only for new users. So if you haven't signed up for HoneyBook yet, and if you sign up using my link that will be in the description box of any video that you see of mine, March 16th through March 31st, I will be drawing from the people that have subscribed to my link during this particular time. I will be sending it over to HoneyBook and I'm going to do a drawing. So I'll just use like a randomizer. I'll send it to HoneyBook and they will activate a full year subscription for you inside of HoneyBook for a whole year. So that is a value of probably about $500. Okay. So you will have a chance to win. And it's really just as simple as just using my link. So you already get a free trial and then you will, even if you don't win, you still get 30% off of HoneyBook for the year. But if you do win, you get a whole year. Okay. All right, awesome. So let's go ahead and get into this. So going through and how you go through and create an insanely good client experience. So one of the first things that I recommend that you do is it has to be intentional. And how we go through and create an intentional client experience, and this is going to sound so simple, but I promise you this is the way to do it, is writing it out. It's about going through and writing out how your clients, how you want them to feel, how you want them to navigate your business. And so this is going to go all the way from the time they actually become aware of you. Okay. So from the time that they find you on threads, from the time that they look at one of your YouTube videos, by the time they get to your website, how do you want them to perceive you, perceive your brand, and how do you want them to interact with you, right? So when they're coming to your website and there is all the information that they need in order to be able to submit that inquiry to you, that is already putting that good client experience or that good taste in their mouth, right? They're already like, okay, this person knows what their processes is. This person already has an idea of the type of questions that I may need to know because she already has her FAQs already written out and I'm not having to go through and search around with trying to find these answers, right? This is already going through and it's letting people know or giving them a sense of that client experience, right? It's already given them that touch. So that's one thing you want to think about is how is my website? How is my presence that I'm showing? How is that helping people to be able to interact with my brand and interact with my business? Now, I do want to be clear on just one thing as well too, is that this doesn't have to be perfect. This does not start off perfect for anyone. I don't think it actually never becomes perfect at all anyway, because it's always something that you're going to have to evaluate, you're going to tweak, and you're going to change. Like I recently did, and I think it was just like a short clip from another podcast episode that I did, is that one of the things that's so important is we all say that I want to automate this or I want to provide good client experience for this. But ultimately, how we know that we are doing a good job a lot of times, in my opinion, is based off of the results of our clients and how they say that we are doing as a whole, right? So it may not just be like one individual person because maybe one person may not had the best experience, or maybe there was some type of glitch, or maybe there was something that you are experiment on. Like I am constantly going through and I'm making tweaks and I'm experimenting on certain things because I want to see how are people actually navigating this? How are they responding to this? How can I make this a little bit better, right? Just recently, within the last year, for example, we've recently went through and I told you that I use HoneyBook a lot of the times for mostly everything with so for mostly everything when it has to do with my onboarding form, with my inquiry form, with my payments and my contract. But I also do use Airtable. Excuse me, I also do use Airtable as well in conjunction with my HoneyBook, right? So this allows for me to be able to automate even more things. And I kind of use Airtable as like my source of truth with a lot of different things. And it allows for me to create just more touch points that I can have with my clients and I can automate some of those things. And I think I showed you part of that in one of the previous videos. I will go deeper in another one of the lives that we have where we're showing behind the scenes. I'll show that a little bit to you as well too. But just being intentional with your client experience and mapping it out is going to be the key to you being able to provide a good client experience. So you have that awareness phase, right? So this is just them coming to come see you, how you're being presented to or how you're presenting to the world, right? And again, this is always something that you're going to tweak, but it's just being aware. So like if you're seeing like signs of like people are contacting you and saying, "Hey, I tried to submit an inquiry with you, but that link didn't work." Well, that's impacting the client experience because they had to contact you, they had to tell you that your link didn't work. So if you're getting a lot of inquiries like that, that's something that let me go back and just let me double check my website just to make sure that all my links work, right? Or I had a question about such and such, but I didn't see that answer on your website. And you're getting that frequently, that lets you know, hey, you need to add this as one of your frequently asked questions. So those are things that you can go through and improve on your client experience. And this is even before they've actually even like dealt with you, right? So then the next thing is going to be once someone actually goes and moves down the process, right? And so you're documenting, you're making it typically what we like to do, and I probably will do this in another video. Let me see if I could probably do this in another video. I'm actually revamping my own client journey myself, just adding in more touch points and doing some tweaks. So I probably will do another Systems and Chill live where I actually go through it live with you and show you what I use and what I do in order to be able to like my mind around how I go through and do that. I'll probably do that in a separate episode as well too for you guys. But so the next thing is going to be the next phase of a typical client journey, which is going to be your inquiry phase. Now, one thing I said, one thing I and I'm hold on, guys. The weather is changing, and so like in our building, we still had the heat on in the building because the heat is controlled by the full in our office building. I turned the heat off for the building, which they don't always like when I do that, but I did. But it is hot. So I'm gonna turn on this little fan. Hopefully it doesn't let me know if it causes too much noise, but I'm burning up. So yeah, so the inquiry phase. So one thing that I did see that I started to see a little bit here recently on threads was that people have been debating whether or not you should do discovery calls. And if you should do discovery calls, should those discovery calls should you charge for them? Just because, like, some people are saying that they're just getting discovery calls and people aren't showing up to those calls, it's wasting a lot of time, et cetera, right? So part of that inquiry phase is to determine Like, do you want to have discovery calls? So, like, for your particular service, does discovery calls, is that a part of your client journey? So, something that they have to do, or you can make it optional, that they need to do in order to be able to inquire about your services. And as part of the client experience overall, do majority of your clients want to do discovery calls, or are you making it harder for them, right? And so I personally, I'm not team anything when it comes to discovery calls. I'm really kind of neutral on the whole thing. Just for me personally, I do require discovery calls. I do. I do a lot, and I don't even call them discovery calls. They are sales, and my sales calls are an hour long. And but it's not for me. And I do have it where it's required so far. I have played around with whether I want to make them optional, or just have it like how I have it now as required. And that's something for me that I've gone through to try to determine what is the best path for me to be able to do this. Like, as far as even when we're talking about client experience, do my potential clients want to do sales calls? Now, I will say for me personally that I haven't had any issues with clients wanting to do sales calls. And again, my sales calls, they are an hour, and I use the full hour of my sales call. However, I do have a process during my sales calls. So this isn't just like, I call it a sales calls, but it's not really me just, I'm not just selling you on the call. This is literally where like I can hear the pain of my clients. And the reason why for me personally at this time is why I personally haven't gotten rid of this part of my process is because I get so much information about the clients and what they're experiencing and what they're going through and their processes and what they want at the end of their system setups, that it prepares me even more for our strategy session, which is the next part of the process once they've actually booked our services, right? And so for me, it just allowed for me to be more prepared for that strategy call. Now, can I ask, or do I ask questions like, do I have an inquiry form that's extensive that they fill out, that they can put that information on? Yeah, I do. I do have that. But for me personally, I have just found that when people go through and they submit inquiries, they will tell you the general stuff about what they're experiencing. Versus when I'm having sales calls, which are like discovery calls, I'm able to come back and ask them when they're like, "Oh, I'm struggling to be able to close my leads." I'm that person during the sales call. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that you're struggling to close your leads? Why do you think that it's taking you so long to be able to draft a proposal? I can't do that on just an intake form. I can't continue to go and do this back and forth about why, right? Now, granted, there are different ways to do this. There's asynchronous videos that you can do. And this part isn't about whether or not to do a discovery call. It's about looking at your process, looking at your clients and how they're interacting with your business to determine in this phase, so in the inquiry phase, what is going to be the best? Hold on one second. Okay. So what is going to be the best solution for you moving forward to be able to provide that the best highest client experience during this process? Okay? So if your clients, depending on the services that you're offering, if they're like, "You know what? I just don't want to do sales calls. I feel like it is a total waste of time. I don't feel good about them." Then maybe it's something that you could consider making optional. Maybe it's something you could consider like doing away altogether. Like over the course of, I've been in business since 2017, and I've literally within this past about year and a half, I've only had one person. Well, no, I've had two people that I closed in the DMs that I didn't do any sales calls for. And one of those people was just like, "Hey, I don't want to do a sales call. Like I've read the sales page and I'm good to go. You could just send me the invoice." She paid in full. This was for a high ticket offer, right? So yes, there are going to be times where you'll have people do that, but because I don't get a lot of people doing that majority of the time, at this point, part of the process is doing a sales call. But what you want to think about too during this stage, so like we're on this inquiry stage, is what happens after they inquire ultimately? What happens after the inquiry? What happens during the inquiry process, right? What are they going to get? Like, so is there going to be a call? Is it just going to be a contract for them to sign to be able to move forward? Is there going to be some type of response that you're going to send out to them where they can immediately get something from you, just letting them know that their inquiry was received? I recently went through and I booked a service with a service provider, right? And I was somewhat familiar with the person. I noticed that I did not go through and plug in my computer. But I did a service with a service provider. I booked a service with a service provider, and I was somewhat familiar with this provider, but not really. But I was familiar enough that I knew that once I paid them, that I was pretty sure I was going to get some next steps. Well, what happened was I did make my payment, and then nothing happened. Nothing. And I was like, okay. Like, okay, I just paid my money, and I didn't get a response for hours about I didn't even get a payment confirmation. Like, "Hey, we received your payment," right? And so instantly, as a person that number 1, I'm kind of familiar because I know that not everyone has systems connected, not everyone has automation, so I'm more understanding. However, I know it's just as being a client of how my stomach kinda just dropped a little bit because I'm like, "Ah, did she get my payment?" Had me double check, did it go through? Yeah, because I didn't even get a confirmation of my payment. And then I didn't even know how to move forward because it was something I needed to book a call for. But I'm like, I didn't even get a link for a call. So like what's about to happen? And so it automatically had me to start questioning the process, right? It started me questioning like, oh my goodness, what's gonna happen? I just made the payment. So those are things that you want to think about too is are we unintentionally going through and giving our clients this type of anxiety because we haven't thought about the process. We haven't thought about, okay, when they go through, put in that inquiry, I need to let them know that it was at least received. Even if we're not sending them anything else, even if we're not sending them any type of questionnaire, we're not sending them a booking link, we're not sending, we want to at least let them know that that inquiry was actually, it was received. And we want to make sure that, because that's what they're thinking about, just like how what I was experiencing, that's what happens with them. However, because I am, again, more understanding, I didn't totally freak out, but I still felt it in my stomach, right? I still felt it in my stomach like, okay, was this actually the right decision, right? Was this the right decision? All right. So the next thing you want to think about when you're thinking about your client experience and how to go through and to make it a really good experience is that you also want to think about that next phase in the journey is you want to think about like your booking phase. Now, these are important. So I want to really kind of press and hone in on that your inquiry phase. And I think this is what we talked about last week. You can go back and watch that video. But we talked about the inquiry phase, or is that the video that's coming out? It'll be out. If it wasn't last week, it'll be the one that's coming out on Thursday. But we talked about the inquiry phase. Inquiry and booking phase, these are like the most important phases, right? Because if these aren't done correctly, there's so many leads that are falling through the cracks, right? Like, have you ever had, and I know just like from working with service providers in various industries, that clients have come to me and it's like, hey, I have inquiries, people who have inquired about my services, and they're literally sitting in my inbox right now. I just haven't had the opportunity to be able to get back with them yet because I'm working on this project or whatever they're doing, right? And like I haven't responded back to this lead from a week ago. Those are missed opportunities. those are missed clients. That is missed money, right? And so that inquiry phase and this booking phase, these are very essential because these are the phases that get you paid, right? So we want to make sure that these phases that we really, really, really think about the intentionality behind each and every touch point. And some of these touch points, and when you're writing this out, like typically what I like to do, so what I do for my clients is I do done for you system setups, right? So I have a service, it's called the 5-star client experience CRM build. And what I do for my clients, the first thing we do is we have a strategy call, which is typically 90 minutes. Now, I have noticed as well, again, when we're thinking about client experience and testing and evaluating, right? I noticed as well here lately is my strategy sessions have gone from 90 minutes to about 2 hours. Some have been 2.5 hours. So even just from a client experience standpoint, what I am even evaluating is, hmm, I need to maybe go through and adjust the time of it. Because I know on the calls, we're not just, kikiing on the calls, right? We're actually masterminding on the calls and we're doing the workflows for up to 3 offers of our clients. And some of the calls have been long because some do have more than just the 3 offers. But overall, they're starting to be a little bit longer. So for me to set proper expectations, I probably need to stop saying or stop booking them for 90 minutes and start booking them for 2 hours, right? So like, let's take 2 hours of your time because what I'm having to do is I'm having to say, oh, this call is going to be a little bit longer because we still have one more offer to go through and map. Do you have an extra 30 minutes, 45 minutes? So just thinking about that, we're always going through an evaluator. We're kind of regressed a little bit. So we do the strategy call. During the strategy calls is where we literally go through and we map out their full client journey. Okay. So this is where we're able to go through and see all of these touch points that I'm explaining to you now. We're going through and we're explaining all of these touch points. Like this is the email that's going to be sent. This is the document that's going to be sent. This is the automation that's going to be happening on the background, right? We're actually adding in these touch points. And then what we're doing is because I believe that when a client does go through and they pay you once, they're more likely to go through and pay you again. And so what we do is we go through and we build in client retention strategies, right? How are we going to get and nurture our clients over time? Okay. So we have that booking phase, we have the onboarding phase. When they go through and pay us, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? This is something that can easily, and when we do our strategy sessions, we map them out, which like I said earlier, that I'll probably do like another live where because I'm revamping mine a little bit, added in some more touch points. So I probably will do like another Systems and Chill live, going behind the scenes and actually map out at least the first part of my client journey with you guys live. So I'll show you that. But having those touch points for even the onboarding phase. So what happens when you're going through and onboarding your clients? What can they expect from you? What do you need to expect from them? So like, is this going to be like if they need to supply you with documents or they need to answer an additional questionnaire, they need to book a kickoff call, they need to go through, book a strategy call, whatever it is that they need to do in order to be able to move to the next phase. How are they going to know to do that? What are your business hours? Like when is a good time for them to connect with you? How is it that they can connect with you? Where do they go? Where are all their assets going to live, right? So we want to be able to go through and explain all of this information to them. That way, having a good client experience is making it where your clients don't have to question a lot of things that you do because you've already been upfront. You've been proactive, right? And ultimately, that's what we want to do. We want to be as proactive as we can, not just for the clients and for their client experience, but it's going to save us so much stress and sanity if we can be proactive in our processes and the things that we have to let clients know. Because guess what? If we're proactive and we've already answered that question, because we've done a lot of the service providers that I work with, they have worked with tons and tons and tons of clients. And so they pretty much know exactly like these are the common questions or roadblocks or milestones of this project that we have to do or this service that we have to do. So when they're going through, they know what their clients type of questions that they need to know ahead of time. So how could you go ahead and just provide that resource instead of having them come to you and ask you, right? Just putting it in a place where they can go through and they can have those next steps and they know exactly what to do. But again, this isn't something that you have to craft in one weekend to say, I'm going to write out this whole process and I'm going to put all these steps in process or implement all of these things all at one time. This is something you can gradually do. And then mind you, you're also gonna change it. And I just want to keep just preferencing that. You're gonna change it. There was a time, so like last year, I was going through and I was playing around with in my process. I was playing around with when I wanted to send my clients gifts. Okay. Typically, and I've seen this done so many different ways. Some service providers send the client gift at the beginning of the relationship, right? So it's like you book the service and then they send out a client gift. Some service providers, they send the client gift after they work with the client, right? And then so I played around with this to figure out, well, where in the process do I actually want to send out my client a gift? And I was playing around with this last year, right? To kind of test when is the best time to do this. And so I even went and kind of tweaked it where I'm like, okay, what I'm going to do is in the beginning of us working together, I'm going to send a smaller gift, right? So I would actually go through, I had signed up for, and I don't drink Starbucks, but it was an easy thing to send electronically to customers or clients. And so I had a Starbucks business account and I was sending it over to them. I'm going to have to connect my charger in a second because we're about to die. But I went through and I was sending them out a business from my Starbucks business account. I was going through and it was easy for me to send out gift cards to all of my clients when I first started doing the service with them. But then what I found is that, and then I would send a gift afterwards. But then what I found is like, as far as the response, it didn't really seem like it really made a difference. And it kind of felt like, mm, the gift card is a lower, like a lower thing. And then you get the gift at the end, which kind of felt, for me, it kind of felt like this was an afterthought. But it wasn't an afterthought, it was part of the process, but the clients don't know that, right? So I was testing it out. So now with that being said, I've gone back to, I'm gonna do it at the end of the project. Now, what I do is just what I do, right? The purpose is for you to test out what works for your people, right? So, and you can decide too, and this isn't even about client gifts. You can give a client gift, not give a client gift. The point is that you're always gonna have to go through and test. I chose, particularly with the client gift, to start doing them at the end because I go through, I give the gift, and then I also go through and I write a personal message. I can't really write a personal message in the beginning because I hadn't had a chance to really work with you, right? And so I literally have, when I changed that, I literally sent out a gift to one of my clients like 2, 3 weeks ago. And she wrote me an email and said, thanks so much for the gift. This is actually perfect because it was a Stanley Cup. I go through and I get the Stanley Cups in my brand color. So I just order them all in like this green color that they have, like this sage color. And so I gave her that and she's like, "Oh, this is perfect for me." I think she said for like going fishing or something she said. I can't remember, but it was an activity that she did. And she was like, this is going to be perfect. And then she said, but the best part was the personal note. And so that for me solidified that I need to do them at the end, because that's only how I can get that detailed in my note, is because I went through and I learned from working with the clients for 5 weeks. I'm able to go through and actually give real value or really a good personal touch because I did that, right? So we're always going to go through and be tweaking. The next thing is going to be, and give me 1 second because I do have to get this charger or we're going to be off the live. So give me 1 second. Do a lot here. Oh, chat. Okay. All right, so we are back. Had to do a whole lot. Okay, but we're charged. It's about to die. Okay, so the next thing is going to be, knock that over. So the next thing is going to be a part of your client journey that you're going to actually map out. So where we was on onboarding is going to be, so let's see, we got onboarding. Okay, oh, project delivery. Okay, so project delivery. Now this is funny because I think a lot of clients or a lot of service providers, excuse me, actually have project delivery down pack. I really don't come across a lot of clients that don't know how to deliver their service, right? Because typically when we get paid as service providers, we know that we have to deliver on the service that we got paid for. So we typically know how to go through and deliver the service and to do a good job. I have never, ever, ever worked with a service provider that did not do a good job. Like all of my clients, they do an awesome job. Like they do not lack skill whatsoever. And just the clients that I see, service providers that I see, even like on threads and stuff like that, like all everybody has talent. Everybody is really, really good at what they do. Everybody's good at what they do. And so the project delivery part, I feel like is not more so not really one of the lacking phase. So like we know how to actually go through and deliver the actual service. But in this phase, what we're really looking at is we're looking at how can we just make it more efficient when we're going through and we're delivering the project, right? So are there certain things that you have to repeat every single project, right? So if you're going through, let's say, like I'm doing system setups, right? But let's say you are a photographer and you're doing these brand photos for a client, and then you have to go through and edit the photos. You have to upload them into a Google Drive folder, maybe to share with the client. Then you have to maybe do some type of like mock-up or something and you send it over to the client. How can you document that process and how could you make that process more seamless for you to do and put it on repeat every single time, right? So it's not that you don't know how to deliver the said service. It's just how could you make it a little bit more seamless and a little bit more easier? And how can we actually start documenting those systems and those processes? That way, in case if we do go through and we were to get help, that we can then go through and have somebody kind of come in after us that can easily go through and do that process again for us as well, right? But again, those are the things that we're looking for, even in that client experience and those touch points. In addition to is how can we even during the project delivery, so the service delivery, how can we go through and still stay in contact with our clients during this phase and have it where this is something that's intentional. This is something that we do with every single client that we get. So let me give you an example. So one thing that I do, so like I said, I do the system setups with our clients. Our clients' projects typically kick off the first week of every single month. That's typically how we do it. Okay. So we're getting documents from them. Typically, most clients, it's about probably around this date. So, like right now is what, March 9th. So typically it's about this time where clients are still submitting in documents, which is perfectly fine, right? Once we go through, we've retrieved all the documents to be able to start their project. We then let them know, hey, we've received everything. Now, one thing, let me kind of backtrack one thing too, is like, for example, like with us and we're receiving documents, we're receiving assets. So let's, even if we're not using myself, let's say you're a website designer, right? And you have to receive a lot of assets in order to be able, so you need to, maybe they didn't pay you for copies, so maybe they're providing the copy to you. You have to provide them with, they have to provide you with the branding assets like the fonts, the logos. They have to provide you with any type of photos that they want to put on the website, etc., right? So typically in that process, that you may have it where it's required that they have to submit everything before you actually go through and get started. The reason for that is because you're setting those expectations ahead of time. Because the reason for that, and I know this is what I do, so this is why I'm kind of using it as an example. Not saying you have to do this, but just giving you a thought about setting expectations even on the project delivery. But one of the reasons why we do this is because it keeps the back and forth. I personally don't like a lot of back and forth, right? I don't want to have to keep asking, hey, can you send me this? Can you send me that? Oh, by the way, it's 2 weeks later and I need that from you. And I'm pretty sure that if I don't like to ask for it, I'm pretty sure the clients don't want to have to interrupt what they're doing in order to be able to provide it to me, right? I really had recently I had a client, we're booking her services. She was doing the 5-star system setup. And one of the things she told me was, hey, I don't know if I could do this particular kickoff date because I'm about to have surgery, right? So I let her know, like, hey, you can absolutely still do this kickoff date if you want to, which was for kickoff at the beginning of the year. You can do it because I only need you for 1 week, really 1 week. I just need you to provide me with all of your documents, your assets, and I don't need you again. I don't need you again. The next time I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to check in with you every single Friday. So I'm going to send you, we have our client portal, which we have our client portal inside of Kitchen. I'll do a separate video on it if you guys want to see like how I actually use Kitchen, but it's, if you want to try it, I do have a link that's in the description box, probably wherever you're watching the video. But is I'll send a message every Friday to check in with the clients to let them know the status of their project. But I don't need anything else from you. So you can rest after your surgery knowing that I'm getting it done. Like I don't need to come back to you. I've reviewed all your documents. I've made sure that everything looks good. And when I send that message off to you to say, hey, we're ready for kickoff, that means we're ready for kickoff. I don't have to ask you anything else. I have everything. Now, of course, if there's a situation that comes up where I run into a problem, which I can literally say has not happened yet, where I've run into an issue because I know the tools that I'm using and I know that everything that I promise I can do. So I haven't had that issue. But if I did, that's the opportunity where I've already set expectations like, hey, I'm going to check in with you every single Friday. And if I have an issue in the meantime, I'll let you know of that issue. That's setting expectations during the project delivery where they know that it's being taken care of. They're not questioning, hey, so I just want to check in and see how things are going. They know that I'm going to contact them every Friday. They already know that. The expectation has already been set because our clients, they are already busy. doing the other work that they are already doing. They're already busy running their business. And we don't necessarily need to have them stopping what they're doing in their business to come back and check in on us to see, hey, I'm just wondering how the project's going. I'm already proactive to let you know. And so during that project delivery phase, that's where you're going through and you are setting those expectations as to let them know what's next. These are the checkpoints that I'm going to have. This is what's going to happen. So when it's time for this project to actually come to a close, that's when I'm going to reach out to say, hey, just letting you know if this project is almost done next week, I'm going to send you a link that's going be sent to you for you to go ahead and schedule your offboarding call so we can go over your build, right? It's just the constant communication. Now, the beauty of this is now I will say for checkpoints personally, I do actually send a checkpoint email. It's not automated. I send a checkpoint email to let them know. So I don't automate my checkpoint emails. But there are certain things during your process that you can automate certain things in your process. So even when it comes to, so we have that project delivery phase, when we start getting over to offboarding, this is even too where there can be things that are automated as well. So you can automate throughout the whole process, but offboarding and client retention, then we can kind of start getting into like a little bit more of your touch points being a tad bit more automated depending on what you're trying to do. Okay. So this is live. I'm going to continue on with offboarding and client retention, but definitely if you have any questions, let me know inside the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. And even if you tune into the replay, I could definitely answer questions for you too if you comment on the video as well. All right. So the last thing about the client experience is understanding and mapping out your offboarding and your retention. This is going to be key. This is going to be the part that a lot of times are missed because as service providers, what happens is, especially if you are a service provider that maybe you don't have a lot of automation at this point, or maybe you're doing a lot of things manually in your business, you might be going through and your inquiries are they're coming in, but you're kind of missing them a little bit. You may already be overwhelmed and swamped by just getting the client and actually doing the project delivery, that by the time it's time to offboard the client, like you're ready to offboard, like you're ready for a break because you have been overworking yourself and you're just ready. You're ready to be done with this project. I know how that feels. I know how that feels to be like, okay, it's time to wrap it up. It's time to wrap it up, right? And so with us saying that sometimes is that what happens is that we don't focus a lot of attention on offboarding and the retention of it all. We're like, okay, I'm done with this project. Here's the offboarding document if you have one, right? So like during this phase is kind of keeping tabs on client retention and the touch points as well. So during this part is that you will more than likely want to send them out something to kind of wrap up the project. So it could be the deliverables of the project itself. It may be some type of guide for the deliverables. So, like, for example, hold on one second. Okay. So, for example, it may be the deliverables itself. So, like, let's say, for example, you're a photographer and you go through and you deliver the edited photos to your clients. This can also look like you providing the deliverables, but maybe you're providing additional assets and resources for the client. So, for example, I recently was chatting with a young lady on her podcast the other day. She's a brand strategist. And one thing that she was doing was that she was not only, of course, sharing the branding assets that she had designed for them, but also showing them how to actually go through and use it, right? Because clients might get that particular service, but they don't really know how to use their branding. Like they don't know where and how they should be using their logos, where and how they should be using their brand colors, brand voice, etc. So how does that look for you in the offboarding phase? I know even for myself as a system strategist is our offboarding phase is, okay, I have all of your assets for you. So like their assets itself, like when I do the build, of course, their build is done in the software that I use. So right now I use HoneyBook for most of our builds for clients that want our client management systems, right? And so, of course, everything that we build for them is inside of HoneyBook, right? So that's inside of their HoneyBook account. But what I've also done is I've gone through and inside of their client portal, I've gone through and created other assets. This is me creating training videos specifically made for their business. Because just because I have done tons and tons of HoneyBook builds at this point, it doesn't mean they all look the same because they don't. I have dealt with people in various industries. I have worked with several different, for example, venue clients. But every time I do a venue, they're not always the same because their processes may be different, right? So it doesn't mean just because a client is in the same industry that what they're utilizing and how their system is built inside of that software, like HoneyBook, is going to look the same. So instead of just going through and giving them, hey, here's a HoneyBook course that I've done that I'm screen sharing my account or someone else's account. No, I actually go through and do training videos specifically made, tailored to them of their accounts. And then what I also do is based off of this is like, again, for me, why I like sales calls because in sales calls is where I can figure out where their pain is. And that's how I know too, okay, I need to do another particular, like another specific video on this. Like I'll have some clients that wanting to knowing how to really use the system, HoneyBook or whatever, is extremely important to them because they may have zero to no knowledge of using it, which means I know that I have to create even more training videos for this particular client, right? So the level or amount of training videos I record can vary from client to client. Also, too, I'll go through and I'll provide them with like a guide for their workflows. This maps out like these are all the workflows that we did inside of your HoneyBook account, which is like the automations, right? This is actually outlined for them inside of their client portal, which I have a folder. It has a folder, it has the training videos, it has that guide. It gives them a guide too of like what you need to double check. Okay. So, like, I need you to make sure you review your emails. I need to make sure that you review the smart file templates that we created for you, right? So I'm giving them also technically an offboarding checklist of these are the things that I want you to go through and double check. And then we provide them with 30 days of support where they can go through, they can make any tweaks, edits, they can ask questions. We use Airtable, so inside of Airtable, they can go through, they can submit support tickets, right? They have a question, they can submit a support ticket. But this allows for us to be able to, number one, to be able to support the client even after we've actually done the project, right? Because we're thinking about, okay, we've done this project. We want them to be able to use this system successfully. So I need to know if they have any additional questions, what questions do they have? This is something that has been tweaked over time. And when you're going through, you're building out your client experience, you're building out your client management system. This is something that you're going to tweak over time as well. Like even back in the day, a couple years ago, I used to only provide 14 days of support, right? I used to only provide 14 days of support. And then I started to think about, is 14 days actually enough time? And I said, no, I don't think 14 days is enough time. I'm gonna start giving people 30 days. And even too, what I'll do is that we do like our client surveys. We always do our client surveys, but I also occasionally will do bonus time for completing a client survey. So like if you complete a client survey, you get bonus 7 days. You know what I'm saying? Like, so this is just about going through and just making these tweaks and seeing what works for you and what doesn't work for you and what works for your clients, right? Because again, the things that you craft is not only based off of you and what you want, you can kind of see the consensus amongst your clients. And then doing the client surveys is very helpful. So like I like to do client surveys. I use, like I said, we use Honeybook for this portion as well too. I think what I am going to do is it's gonna sound, I don't want it to sound complicated, but I use Honeybook for my offboarding form. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to embed an Airtable form inside of my Honeybook form, so I could still have like the fanciness of my Honeybook, but I could use Airtable. That way, it's connected to like each one of our client records. If you want to see it, I'll show you. I'll let you comment, and then I'll show you in another video. But with that being said, is that we do a client survey so we can give feedback, because feedback, that is only how we're going to be able to give the good client experience that we really want, is by getting feedback. You think about like any place, like even a regular store like Walmart or Chick-fil-A or Amazon or places like that, especially places that are in person, they always have like these suggestion box or feedback, right? Because they're always asking questions to get the feedback of their customers and of their clients, because that's the only way that we can improve our services, right? And so it's very important during that offboarding phase is to not only ask for a testimonial, like we want a testimonial, of course, but we want to go through and we want to ask for client feedback. Like, what could I do better? And like, I'll put on my forums, like, just be honest. Like, if it was something that you didn't like or you wish that you could have seen from me, let me know. Because I would like to know and I will consider it, right? I will consider adding it or doing it. And it doesn't mean that every single client you put in something and it's like you're always tweaking your process just because one person said something. One person said they didn't like that you did XYZ versus no one else has mentioned it, right? No, it's about thinking about it, like literally thinking about, does this person actually, is there validity to like what this person is saying based off of like the process that I know that I have? Is it like a really valid feedback? Could this be something that I can implement? Have other people said the same thing? Because if other people said the same thing, maybe this is something that I should consider adding to my process and then tweaking it later, right? And so these are the things that we are thinking about during this process. And the last thing to really go through and wrap this up, and like I said, I'll go back tomorrow and I'll put some timestamps in the video that way, because now I said it was gonna be like 30 minutes, but we are an hour. And I appreciate you guys that are tuning in live, that you're still live with me. I appreciate that, because we are long today. Sometimes I talk too much. So I appreciate you being on here live. But the last thing is going to be for our retention afterwards. Okay. So you might have that a client offboarding, like you're like, okay, I get the testimonial, I've sent the feedback form, like I've done all these things, and I've provided support to my clients, after I delivered this product, right? Well, then we want to think about the client retention, like this period, and I would say at least up to a year, right? Is how can I go through and still support this client? What does it look like for the next year, even if I'm not being paid for it? Even if I'm not getting paid for it, what can I do to still show that I care, because I do, and still show support, right? And how you can do that is start putting in those touch points in your client experience, in your client journey, where you are checking up and following up with the client to see how things are going, or providing them with additional resources. Or if something that may have changed in your process that would have drastically changed the transformation for that client, to how could you maybe make it available to them again? So I'm going to give you an example. So last year, what is this, 2026? So 2025, the beginning of 2025, so the end of 2024 and 2025, I was offering HoneyBook intensives, right? So, backtrack just a little bit further really quickly is that when I first started my business, my main service for my business, I started off as like a virtual assistant. So, I was offering virtual assistant services, but then moved into also helping other virtual assistants create their businesses. And so, I had an online course, right? And during that time, I liked online courses, but I just found like traditionally, I just feel like people just don't really complete online courses. And so that was one of the things that really got me because I'm like, people just are not, they're not completing them. They're not completing the courses. And I was getting questions about things that is like, hey, well, how do you do this? It's in the course. You just haven't gotten to that module yet. It's in there. So I'm not the biggest fan of courses, needless to say, and I know now courses are, like, kinda on this trend of being dead, which I don't think that they're dead per se. I do think there is a good market for courses. There's good things that courses can do, especially if you're sharing your experience, you have frameworks, all of that goodness, right? That doesn't matter. But last year, so at the end of 2024, 2025, I wanted to create a program to help service providers basically DIY their own systems, right? But I didn't want to create a course because I knew that if I were to create a course, they wouldn't get the results that I wanted them to get. Like, I didn't want to record a whole bunch of honeybook videos and just say, here you go, there you go, create your systems, right? I didn't want to do that. So what I did was I went through and it's funny because I still have these videos, which I think I'm gonna just provide them as maybe bonus material to my done for you clients. But so I created basically a course, kind of, I guess, but I created a course, but it wasn't something that they only did the course. It came with structured videos that led them through a particular process. And it was over the course, I think, of like 6 weeks or something like that. But it also entailed live calls. So they would come to me live to actually ask questions, ideally, to actually come and ask questions live and to be able to build it out and kind of do like live working calls. That was the idea of it, right? And so when I initially sold spots to that, what was happening was is that I had the videos where they were supposed to go through the videos, and the videos really weren't that long. I think collectively the course was like maybe 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours or so. And so they were supposed to do a certain amount, like there were certain like sections they were supposed to do initially, and then they would come to their first live call, which was a group call. And then what I found was, okay, doing the one call wasn't enough. It wasn't gonna be enough because what I found was people weren't even doing the first videos that they were supposed to do before coming to the call. They weren't doing those. And so the live calls really turned into like a teaching call, right? It turned into like a whole teaching call. Hold on one second. So it turned into like a whole teaching call, which is not what I wanted, right? I wanted to be a working call where we're actually working through and actually getting the systems built. So what I did was is that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna revamp this program again. I'm gonna add in more calls. So like I said, I think I extended it to like 6 weeks or 8 weeks or something like that. And then I think I added in, I want to say maybe 3 calls. I think I added in like 3 calls. I'm like, I'm gonna change it. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna invite the people that were in the program before. I don't necessarily owe you to do it again, but I want you to come do it again. If you got the time to do it again, come do it again. And I'm not even gonna charge you, or I think I might have charged him only like 97 bucks. Mind you, it was like 500. I'm like, hey, you just be the difference. Like it's gonna be like $97 for you to come do a whole nother 6 to 8 weeks with me because I think doing the program this way is gonna get you better results, right? So the point that I'm making with this is when you are even going through and maybe changing something in your process that might have created a significant difference in results for the clients that you had previously, it may even be something to consider like, hey, how can I go back to a couple of clients and be like, you know what? you want to try this one more time, right? So with that particular offer, that's what I did. I just tried again. Now you're probably saying you don't offer that offer anymore. I don't. I don't offer that offer anymore because after running that cohort or whatever, I think I ran it like 3 or 4 times, and maybe I need to try again, but I still wasn't getting the results that I wanted to get, which was I wanted the systems to be fully built at the end of 8 weeks, and it just wasn't it just was not happening. It just was not happening, and I'm not sure if it because it was a group, maybe I could do it one-on-one, but I was like, "You know what? Let's pause this." Like, I like to just do done for you. I'm gonna do done for you services, and I know so many people do done with you, and I love it, but I just haven't been able to get the result that I wanted and done for you. And maybe it's the container's not long enough. I'm not sure, but we'll figure that out maybe one day. But for now, I do my setups for clients. But the point that I'm making is with your client retention, how could there be something that you may have changed? How could you go back to maybe tweak it for another client, right? So like as I'm going through, like I have my client portal set up for all my clients, like I said, inside of Kitchen. And if there's clients that I might have updated something like where I'm doing like a different type of video, I'll go back and I'll go back on a client. It could have been like 6 months ago. And I'll update their portal like, okay, let me put this in their portal. And I'll be like, hey, I just added another video to your portal. They didn't ask me for that, but I did go back and do it just because I'm like, I know that this resource will still help you as you're going through and you're operating in your business, right? And then how can we go through and how can we continue to be able to work with those same clients? Again, is by following up with them. Well, and having a cadence for when you follow up, right? So that's something you would map out. Like, okay, I'm going to follow up with clients. Like, so typically with myself, I'll follow up. So we do, like I said, the 30 days of support. During that support phase, I do have automated emails that go out. Okay. Back in the day, I used to try to rely on my brain or task reminders for me to go through and follow up with clients. I was consistent with following up with them during that time, but it wasn't on a consistent cadence where it was set days that it needed to be. So now one of the things that I can do with using my HoneyBook and my Airtable connected is that I can then go through and say inside of Airtable, this client is in 30-day support. Click the date, their support, and then it's tallying what day they're on in their support, right? So this also is connected, and I could show this to you, I guess, in a separate video, but it's also connected to the form that I have them with putting in their support tickets. So with their support tickets, they can only put in a support ticket as long as they're in that 30-day support window. Once they're outside of that 30-day support window, their name won't show up on the form, so they can't put in any more support tickets. But they're getting automated emails. So day one, they get an email. Hey, your support has kicked off. This is what you need to do, blah, blah, blah. Then day 8, day 15 is day 15, day 22, and day 31. I'm going through and I'm sending out automated emails. I'm checking in on them, just letting them know like I'm here to support them. I'm also giving them like tips for the season of which they're in, right? Per each week. Like, hey, like for example, like day 8 might be like, one of the biggest things that I'm seeing with clients that they struggle with when they first get their systems is building the habit to use their systems, right? And so I'm encouraging them, get in the habit of using the tool that we built for you. I need you to go inside HoneyBook every day, or at least every other day, instead of sometimes when we get busy, especially when we have system setups, we just naturally rely on things that we've always done. Like you've always gone into your Gmail to send that email, or you've always went into QuickBooks to send that invoice. And when you're busy, you'll tend to rely on the thing that you know how to do versus start to build that muscle for the new system. And so like I give tips and stuff like that, but those are automated. This allows for me to be able to continue to be able to have this high touch point with the client without me having to be on, without me having to go through and remember, oh, did I follow up with such and such? She should be on, what day of support is she on? Like literally, I can go in Airtable, I can see what day support she is on, but I know where the client is on, but I know that they are being supported. And in each one of those emails too, with the tips and stuff like that, I encourage them to put in a support ticket. I just don't leave them with a support ticket in the offboarding form and say, okay, you have access to submit support tickets, but now you're shuffling around to try to figure out where that form is. That form is in their client portal. They've been sent the form and they are emailed that form every single week that they are in their 30-day support period. So they're never having to go through and shuffle around where exactly that they need to go in order to be able to put in support. Hold on one second. Then the last thing is going to be is that even after your support window, so depending on what you do, you may not have no support window, right? Like I do. But even after that period is how can I touch base with them? So I personally like to do like after the support period, we'll typically check with them at 60 days, 90 days, and then typically it'll be about 6 months and then a year we check with them. This allows for us to see, okay, how is your system working for you? What problems are coming up for you? Do you need any help? Because typically what happens too is if there's things that they have updated or changed, so like let's say they updated an offer. If they updated an offer or maybe they got a new team member or something like that, chances are is that their system probably needs to be revamped, right? They might need to add a service in there. They might need to add in some automation, right? We might need to kind of like reconfigure their client journey because maybe too after experience and after clients have gone through your journey, you now know that you have to go through and tweak it because there has been issues and not necessarily bad issues. It could be something as simple as you have a contact form and you have entirely too many questions on that contact form where you're finding that people just aren't filling it out the way you want them to fill it out. That means that we might need to review that form and see where can we go through, where can we eliminate questions? Where can we maybe just ask questions when we're doing a call if we have a call involved, right? And so ultimately, your client experience is built on intention. Okay, it's built intentionally. This is something we're thinking about. We're thinking about how can we create this experience because some of these things that I talked about in this live is that they're silent things that are happening that you may not realize that they're happening, right? Like we focus a lot on the obvious, like those more obvious sections of, oh, when someone goes and pays me, I need to send them out a, thank you email or a welcome guide. That's very obvious. And you may or may not already have it. If you do, great. If you don't, no problem. You can always create it. But that's still technically an obvious touch point, right? What are some of those in between ones that I mentioned? Those touch points of while you're doing the work, send them a message, contact them, see if they have any questions, see what's going on after you deliver the product. Those are things that are a lot of times that are invisible because you don't have to do them, right? They're not required for you to do. But in order for you to be able to get your client experience to the level that you want it to be, right? Everybody's client experience is going to look different, not just because of the delivery of it all. It's going to look different because your expectations for your client experience is just going to be different, right? If I say that for me, I went down and niched down to client experience that ultimately and because I niched down into it because I knew that I was so focused on it constantly like no, this is what you should niche into because I'm constantly evaluating and tweaking and making changes. Like I said, I'm making changes even now. And I don't never think that it's going to be a point where I'm going to be like totally like, okay, this is the ultimate thing because I'm just one of those people that I always like to kind of just push the needle forward. And one of those things I try to draw back from, like let's let it eventually be done. But there's gonna be times where again, you're gonna have to go back and evaluate and make those changes. Okay. So I hope that I'm so happy that, like I said, for those that you guys were able to stay on with me during the session live. I appreciate you going and joining me. Definitely let me know if you have any questions in the chat. I think I can see my chat here as well. And like I said, is that next week, so this is going to be March 16th through March 31st. I'm gonna do we're gonna oh, last thing too, is that next week, it should be the first one should be already up. Next week I'm going live 3 times. I'll be live 3 times next week. So I'll be live at 12 p.m. Eastern, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. Okay. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, I will be live. So definitely, if you have any questions, the first one, after you leave this one, it actually should redirect you to the first one where you can save. But we're going to talk about how to go through and deliver a client experience without you working 24/7 and without you having to be on all the time. So that's what we're going to talk about next week. And then we're going to do Tuesdays and we're going to do Wednesdays. And some of these are also going to be demos. So I could go through and I could show you these as well too. So like I said, March, as far as the promotion though, that you can win a free year, possibility of win a free year of HoneyBook. That's going to be March 16th through March 31st. Okay. So if you've never signed up for HoneyBook, to be able to go through and manage your clients, HoneyBook is a client relationship management tool where you can go through, you can manage everything in one place. This is going to be your contracts, your invoices, your automation, your client communication. You can keep track of project deadlines, project details. You could do your inquiries, your offboarding, onboarding. You could do all of that in one place. This is what I have been using. This is what we set up for our clients for years. And so you will be able to go through and win a free year or have the opportunity to win a free year March 16th through March 31st only by just signing up by my link. That's all you have to do. Sign up using my link during that time period. And then I will be doing a drawing, submitting your information over to HoneyBook, and they will activate that free year in your account. So there will be one winner that will get that. So I will be announcing who that winner is that first week of April. Okay. All right. So I appreciate you guys joining me live. As always, if you do need help with setting up systems into your business, you can head on over to your systemsupport.com, and that is where I can help you get your system set up. I do have our 5-star CRM builds. So these are for service providers that want their system set up for you. These phases for which I talked about today. So the inquiry phase, the booking phase, the onboarding, offboarding, client retention. We actually do all of that and we put all of those systems inside the software, which we use HoneyBook at this time to implement for you. And we map out your client strategy in a visual way. And I build out all of the assets for you for up to 3 of your offers. So this is all of your automations, your inquiry forms, your schedulers. I set this and do all of this for you and it takes about 5 weeks. Okay. So that's if you need done for you services, as well as even what we're talking about now. If you don't need done for you services and you just need someone to actually do what I said in this live today, as far as mapping your client journey, I do also offer it's a 90-minute client experience accelerator. And so that's where, if that's the issue that you're having and you want to get that done, we could talk about getting that done inside of the accelerator. And then that does also come with support as well. So, like, I had a young lady, I want to say, it was the week before last. She signed up, she got the client experience accelerator, and she wanted to go through and have her client journey mapped. So we mapped in 90 minutes with her because she did have some additional questions about HoneyBook because she's currently a HoneyBook user and wanted to know how to go through and set certain things up. So what we did for her is that I just mapped out and she gets access to the map. So she gets access to the recording, the access to the actual map that I did for her. But we just did the inquiry phase to the booking phase because that was the most important for her. She has a venue business. And so then we went inside of HoneyBook and I showed her how to actually create those assets so she could then go through each one of the touch points and actually bring it to life. And then she got 7 days of support, which she has access to our client portal, where she's able to send over chat messages to me, as well as ask additional questions. Like I had to do like a couple of like Loom videos for her as well, just to show her how to do additional things to kind of bring the automation portion to life after she's gone through and completed the task. So, but the client accelerator is one of those things that you can bring various different things that you want systems related that I can help you with. Okay. All right. So again, the site for that is yoursystemspro.com if you need that type of support. But I hope to see all of you guys again next week. Again, I will be live for these systems and chill sessions every single Monday at 12 p.m. Next week, we will be live for 3 days. I'm hoping that it will not be as long as it was today. Today I talked a little bit too much. I think I had too much coffee. So today I did a little bit too much talking, but it's going to be from 12 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. We will be live. So I'm hoping that you guys can join me there as well. And again, be able to just share this content with a friend. And I hope that, like I said, I'll go through and I'll put the timestamps too, just in case you did tune in afterwards. You'll be able to have those timestamps. But again, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.